Hi everyone, I'm Anthony O'Flynn, and this is a follow-up video to the previous video I made regarding the awakening community and the basic concept behind the activism involved in protests. Now, the very positive aspect of this, as a generalization, is that it helps to communicate the message of the various social, political, economic and environmental issues that we face. And for this reason, the whole key concept behind speaking out, it's essential because it has the ability to shape public opinion. And if this wasn't a very important influence on people's psyches, on people's values, on people's behaviour, then the mainstream media wouldn't be used as a propaganda machine to simply try to influence people's attitudes and opinions. And that's really the deterioration of journalism today as we see it. It's nothing more than just blatant propaganda, state and corporation propaganda. And this is really highlighted by the mass formation psychosis that we've seen during the pandemic. And therefore, if this tool can be used to shape people's opinions through information, and some people have even labelled what's taking place as an information war, then obviously the opposite reaction or the opposite end of the spectrum is the ability to speak out and to raise these issues and to bring it into the public sphere, because otherwise remaining silent is just basically a reflection of consent. And so this means that the need to speak out, to raise the awareness around some of the distortions of the truth, the basic manipulation of science, of blatant lies that we've seen time and time again, and way before 2020. This has just brought it into mass public awareness, is obviously going to help people start to, at least in the beginning, discern the truth from the lies. And this is really reflected in the great work by the Belgian psychologist Matthias Desmet on his understanding of mass formation psychosis, which, by the way, he had been lecturing on prior to the pandemic. So this isn't some kind of trend that he's cashing in on or something. This is something that he's very well informed of these topics, of these of the psychology behind this collective insanity that we're seeing continue. And in his view, one of the most important things is to continue to speak out, to continue to have your voice heard, to continue to raise these topics, to help people understand that they're basically in a state of complete indoctrination and basically mind control. And at a much deeper level, if we look at this from the spiritual perspective, then what we see is that the inability for so many people to speak out, if it is a response to fear of what other people will think, fear of being ridiculed, fear of being alienated, all the emotion across the spectrum of fear that prevents people from speaking out, then they are not moving into a state of courage. And while this idea of speaking out about the various tyranny that's going on around the world is an aspect of courage, it's not necessary for every single person to do that in the same way. But my point here really is that for those people on the journey of awakening, if you consider yourself to be on the journey of awakening, if you understand what that is, then it must be embodied. And what I'm referring to is this quality of courage. This quality of courage must be embodied in some context. Now, this will show up for different people in different ways. But if you're wanting to be of service, if you're wanting to help transcend the ego, to move in a state of selflessness, and you feel this is the calling, and it's what's holding you back is fear in one way or another, then this particular group of souls who are in this category are not embodying courage. And this quality specifically of courage adds a not negotiable quality to make the transition into the new paradigm, because the new paradigm is not based on fear. This paradigm is based on fear. And that tool of fear has been used by the globalists, by the propagandists, to get everyone to accept the magic potion and to create this mass formation psychosis, which ultimately is based on fear itself. And so therefore the new paradigm is based on love. But love has many different aspects and many different qualities. And many people think that there's only this softness, this gentleness to love. But if you actually look at the word courage itself, the formation of the word cor, it actually is the Latin word for heart. So therefore there is this aspect of courage, because it is the polarity between courage and fear in this context that separates us from these lower states of consciousness. And so therefore the entire process of reincarnating and taking physical body in this planet at this time is ultimately with the potential to move into this state of courage, which is an expression ultimately of love, to move into this love. But if there are so many people who are just wanting to spiritual bypass this, particularly in the New Age community, then this opportunity for growth, which it must be embodied, it cannot be just in the head. There must be real action in the world. These qualities must be exhibited both internally and externally. And this is what we're failing to see at a collective level, that many people are just driven by the herd consciousness. And yet there are some people who claim to be on the journey of awakening, but still are not able to find their voice and speak out for what is the truth, for what is right. And it doesn't necessarily mean even doing it on the internet per se, but taking a stand for what you believe in. And that stand is not negotiable. You cannot be challenged at that level. And then when you find that courage within and you pass these tests, everything behind you in this sense from an evolutionary point of view becomes very easy, because you're not conditioned by what others think of you. You're not living in a prison of other people's opinions of you. And this is very important for many other aspects of what we're about to go through, because it's necessary to find your own tribe in this process of the paradigm shift, because it is going to become extremely problematic at a physical level as we head into 2023 next year in many ways. And at the same time, people are ignoring that. And in my view, you're better off having a small tribe that you can rely on and that you can be relied on. Because so many of the times these sorts of communities or community type things, people only ever focus on what they get, and that's not the language of the heart at all. And this means that we are basically going to be tested to see how we stand and where we are able to be of service of others and to give in terms of the tribe, and because we will need to work with other people through this. So it's important to find your tribe, even if it's a small one. Much better to have a small one that is dependable and committed and you can trust, than having fake friends and having all these kind of fake friendships, fake relationships and all these sorts of things. They're not going to be any value. And so for this reason, it's good to have this discernment of who you want to be around, and for other people, do they want you to be part of their tribe? So I expect this to start to dramatically change, and I'm talking at a local level here, even in terms of your immediate neighbours and so on. I'm expecting this to change radically at a local level as we move through this decade, definitely as we head into 2024 and on. So this is important. This is an important thing. And also in terms of consciousness, to find this courage within, because we all have the potential to connect to it. And even at one point, one man communicated to me, "Why do you care so much about this? Well, I mean, what does it make so much difference to you? What's the point of all this?" And that's a beta male statement right there. And this consciousness doesn't even understand not just in terms of the global paradigm shift and the Great Awakening, all these sorts of things, the global awakening, but also this person just doesn't understand the qualities of the higher qualities of masculinity as well. And it's because the men have been so weakened in this way, so emasculated, which has been going on for decades. This is reflected in low sperm counts, which is happening across the planet, and many other qualities. Now, because of this, because the men have been so weak, now they're coming after the kids as well. And if you're not going to stand up for your own immediate tribe, your immediate family, then who will you stand up for? Because no one else is going to do this for you. And now the whole scam is starting to break down, and we're seeing this information now coming out more and more, that this whole thing was a scam. And many people will say they were coerced, they were manipulated, they didn't know, and all these types of reasons for taking the magic potion. Hope you know what I'm referring to. But when the blame game starts, which it already has, many of these people refuse to take any personal responsibility for their own actions whatsoever. And again, this is just the result of lower consciousness, as I talk about this in my book that I wrote, and the effects of this. Because everyone will try to blame their employer, the media, the government, the various medical fraternity organisations, but you'll find very few people actually taking the responsibility and having the courage to admit that they simply got it wrong. So this evolutionary journey that we're on has been compressed, and this entire situation with the pandemic and the magic potion, if you look at it lucidly with discernment, is an opportunity for evolution. Actually, and everyone will experience this in different ways. Now, I'm not here to judge anyone's individual choices, because at a sole choice, everyone has made a decision as to what they personally want to experience from this entire manifestation of this world event. And I'm not here to say that this experience is wrong or right. It's precisely what that soul needs. But there is the opportunity to learn that lesson and then grow from it. But if someone is not prepared to acknowledge their own responsibility and their own decisions and their own integration into the law of cause and effect, and simply be in this childish, primitive state of blaming everyone else, then it's very difficult to move on. And as a side note to that, we're seeing now that the tide is definitely turning. So in the Australian newspaper on the 9th of October, the Surgeon General in Florida has issued a warning against those aged 18 to 39 receiving the magic potion, due to the magic potion creating an 84% increase in the risk of cardiac-related death. And on the Florida website, I quote, but I will change out some of the terms for obvious reasons. On the website it says, this analysis found that there is an 84% increase in the relative incidence of cardiac-related deaths among males 18 to 39 years old with 28 days following the magic potion. With a high level of global immunity to the Rona, the benefit of the magic potion is likely outweighed by this abnormally high risk of cardiac-related death among men in this age group. So there you have it right there. If you won't listen to me, then perhaps you'll listen to the Surgeon General in Florida, United States of America. And we're seeing all kinds of other information come out now to show that this thing has just been a scam from the start, that it never stopped transmission, that they knew that before they released the product. The evidence is everywhere if you have eyes to see it. But that's not really where we're heading now. It's sort of too late in a lot of ways for people to undo what's been done. We can only move forwards and navigate the colossal fallout that is starting to take place, which what I'm seeing is truly, absolutely shocking and horrifying. and we are going to be living in a different world. There's no specific date for this, but because of this fallout, because of this colossal damage that has now occurred that cannot be undone, God knows where we're going to be in 2 to 3 years from now, and we're seeing now more and more that the true agenda is being revealed, that the face of this tyranny is now being illuminated, and more people who have taken this are now starting to ask questions and starting, at least internally, to come to the dire conclusion that yes, they have been scammed. And moving on from that, in order to grow and evolve through this, however you want to view it, mistake, whatever, the real question to ask is, how was I conned? And I'll be speaking about this more in another video. How was I conned? Because yeah, a lot of people, apparently the take up of the magic potion 2 shots in Australia is 95%. That's what the claim is. I have no way of evaluating the truth of that. But how was it? That's the question that everyone needs to ask. When they come to the conclusion that yes, they were conned, and there'll be a lot of people that will simply never admit that, will literally go to their graves believing some other story or some other secondary disease was the cause of their death, which is fine. But there will be some people who will become very vocal, and there will be some people who will simply be ashamed of themselves. And particularly the people that ridiculed, alienated and harassed and humiliated the people that were speaking out about this right from the beginning. Because it's going to take a big person to admit that you got it wrong. You got it wrong. And I know that there's no person on this planet that hasn't made mistakes at one point or another. That's part of the human experience. But to generate the humility and also the courage to go into that space of consciousness will be a big leap for many, particularly breaking out and breaking down of this mass formation psychosis, which is, it's still here now, and we're about to see the next phases of it. If you have not seen what's happening in France, people are getting up at when it's still dark to fill up their car with petrol, and the police are evaluating whether their tank is full enough or not, whether they can put petrol in their car, and they're lining up for hours and hours to simply get petrol. And there have been instances where yes, the police have interfered and said to people, evaluated whether their tank is too full or not. And that's happening in France, and it's not even the winter yet. And so we are only heading in one direction as far as this systemic collapse is concerning. We are never going back to the way things were in 2019, and many people who are on this journey of awakening will say, well, things weren't great then either. Now it's just that the band-aid is being ripped off, and now we're seeing how decadent and corrupt and blatantly dysfunctional the institutions are. And that is why we're in this systemic crisis, because we have to break down before we can break through. And this is really where we're at now. So it is an exciting time to be here. It is a challenging time to be here. But what's necessary is some of these qualities I mentioned earlier is definitely courage. That is not negotiable. And also the need for lucidity and discernment, which is something that people will ultimately develop from making these mistakes, which shows that it has a function in their own evolutionary journey, for their own soul journey. And therefore, we can see that every decision, every life path has its unique role, and nothing is lost or wasted or is not having a purpose ultimately in this divine tapestry. So that's everything for now. I'll be back with more soon. Thanks so much for watching, everyone, and we live in epic times.